Hi, I'm Beccy from the Apprenticeship Hub. I'm here with Rachel, who is also an advisor on the project. I just wanted to talk about today and really kick off with what an apprenticeship is. So Rachel, do you want to give us a bit of an insight into what an apprenticeship is?
There's so much talk out there about apprenticeships, but there's actually a lot of misunderstanding about what apprenticeships are. And it's great to go down to sort of like the bare bones of what an apprenticeship is to sort of understand it, to see if it's the right route for you. So an apprenticeship in essence is training and hands-on work that happen basically simultaneously in a lot of cases, but it's a blend of training and learning at the same time.
Okay.
So you would take on a normal job like a normal employee in a business, but at the same time you'd be training into that role by completing a qualification alongside that into that industry, which would then allow you to get hands-on experience of that industry itself and that role while gaining the qualification to actually support that actual job.
Okay, brilliant.
So unlike, say, for going into a college, for example, nothing against colleges, but if you went into a college environment and didn't take a job alongside, you would gain the qualification, but you wouldn't get the experience.
Yeah.
An apprenticeship actually allows you to take both on at the same time. So you would finish that apprenticeship, you would leave with the length of that programme of experience of that qualification and that industry at the same time.
Really good. Okay. With that sort of the upskilling side of things, can that be done through somebody who already has a job? Does that have to be done through a recruitment process? Like what would that process look like for that individual? Could they already be in that role?
So often this is something, with my history, I was an apprenticeship trainer for 12 years. So one of these things actually, they happen frequently. So somebody would be often moving from being basically the top in their area of their industry. So they might have got up to be a leader of a team. They've never led a team of people before, but they're really good at what they do. And all of a sudden they're pushed into a leadership role, for example. And then they go, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. An apprenticeship would be a really good step to then intervene at that point and say, right, let's put you onto an apprenticeship programme. It doesn't affect your employment. It doesn't affect anything. Your pay could stay the same, all these types of things, but you would just put onto an apprenticeship programme. So you would get that element of you'd be doing that job, but also doing that qualification alongside it. And you could learn the skills into leadership and management, for example. There's a level 3 diploma that the Institute of Leadership and Management do. That's an excellent one that gives you that basis of leadership and management theory, but you're actually putting it into relation of your actual job as you're learning into it as you go along. You can do it in any industry, to be honest. You could be in a business and decide that you want to move into a different area or that it's an area of interest. Take it as an apprenticeship route, learn into it, qualify into it, and take that avenue of work alongside.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very much really useful for upskilling.
That's great. And there's lots of different areas that can be upskilled into. I assume, does it all have to be sort of management type of roles, or is there kind of other areas that can be, I suppose, upskilled into?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It doesn't have to be leadership. So a lot of qualifications with apprenticeships, they start from level 2 right through to degree level. So if you say, for example, you were entering into a sector at a level 2 standard, coming in as an entry role, you could then use apprenticeships to slowly upskill yourself through that process. So taking yourself from the basic entry level requirements and knowledge and skills right through to then moving on to your level 3 to a 4 to a 5 to a 6 to a 7, for example, if the standard and qualification, that's quite broad because they don't often go exact level by level. Every sector's different. But yeah, you can move through an industry with levels.
All right, that's really good to know. When you mentioned sort of the level 6, level 7, is that sort of what would the equivalent be if you're working through a more academic structure? So if you went through college and university, what do those higher levels look like?
So if you were going to a traditional route that everybody commonly thinks about is you go to school, you do your GCSEs, you get your GCSEs, you move on to do your A-levels. So your GCSEs are actually equivalent to a level 5 GCSEs is equivalent to a level 2 apprenticeship programme, which is often something people will come out of school and enter into, or your entry roles into an industry. They'll give you a really good sound understanding of an industry and a sector and the roles and responsibilities within it. So level 3 is equivalent to 2 A-levels. So where you would go off and do that at maybe leaving school, and that would be your next step, or you might go off to college. Some people go off and do like a vocational route through a college, doing anything from hairdressing right through to bricklaying and things like that. That you could do those, but then the level 3 kicks in at that point, and that is equivalent to 2 A-levels in actual sort of knowledge and requirement that's required towards it is 2 A-levels. Then you start to progress on to your foundation degrees, which is sort of your 4, 5s, and then 6s and 7s goes into your full degrees. So it's like you're going from your A-level learning, college learning, through to them higher educational setting learning. So quite often quite academic topics that come alongside those as well, and a much higher level of understanding that's required for them. And for a lot of the degree apprenticeship routes, you do actually need entry requirements. Whereas a really good thing about some of the entry-level apprenticeships is there's no entry requirements. Okay. So you could have no GCSEs, no maths or English, and you could enter into an apprenticeship programme. Some people use them as a really good fresh start. So if you've maybe come out of school, for example, had to get a job or didn't know what you really wanted to do, and then later in life you think, actually, I really want to move into that area of work, an apprenticeship would be a fab way to do that, because you've not had to gain all that knowledge and understanding before you go into it, and then qualifications.
Retrain in that sort of area then.
Yeah. Again, when I used to deliver apprenticeships, it used to be a really highly, like that used to be something that happened a lot. An example I had is that there was a girl that actually was working for a council, and she was working in a legal department, working to be an administrator. So she was doing a business administration level 3 qualification, and she was working as a sort of supporting the legal secretary. So she wasn't a full legal secretary because she'd need a qualification for that, but she'd an administrator within the department. Previous to that, she'd been in a fish and chip shop.
Okay.
She hadn't excelled at school. She didn't like that setting. So then she found the job as an apprenticeship and said, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to roll with it and I'm going to give it a try. She took the role. She was quite possibly one of the most motivated learners I've ever worked with as well, which was fantastic to work with her. But she was learning all about the legal industry while being an administrator doing her apprenticeship. And her employer was then actually going to take her on to start taking her through her legal secretary training after that.
Oh, brilliant.
After her apprenticeship finished.
So she's got that extra progression already.
Yeah.
And sort of secured while she's doing her apprenticeship.
And she was earning a wage alongside it, which was the same as all of her colleagues as well, because it wasn't an apprenticeship wage she was getting paid. So she was earning a proper salary alongside retraining into a different industry. So it allowed her to carry on living the way she was, but retraining into a different industry to future-proof herself, basically, into an industry. And she was in her mid-20s when she decided to do that.
So she wasn't sort of that school age. I suppose some people may see apprenticeships as just you're 16 leaving college and that's the route, an alternative route. But if she's in her 20s and she's used that to retrain and gain those extra skills, which is great.
Yeah, because I think that's a real misunderstanding with apprenticeships, and it's good to say that you highlighted that one, is that an apprenticeship, you can take on an apprentice anywhere from being 16. Basically, you can't be in another full-time educational setting. So you can't do your A-levels and also do an apprenticeship at the same time. Or you can't be doing a degree somewhere else and do an apprenticeship at the same time. You can't do both. You would be employed, not in full-time education, and have the right to live and work in the UK. They're your entry requirements. You've just got to be 16 and up.
And then you're good just to go.
There is no maximum age limit to take on an apprenticeship.
That's really good.
So people take them on at all different stages in order to do that. Often that reskill, upskill, move sectors, or all of a sudden you've been in an industry for a long time and think, actually, I'm ready to take that next step. I'm ready to move on. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you can use that apprenticeship route to actually do that.
Fantastic. I think we've covered quite a lot of, I suppose, the benefits and things mixed into our conversation. But have you got any key benefits that I suppose you want to highlight?
Yeah, I was going to say that there's quite a lot obviously coming through that. So they're a really good upskill route and a way that you can earn and learn at the exact same time, rather than having to take time out to learn an industry while you don't earn a salary alongside it. Yeah. So that's a real key benefit for people, and it makes them accessible for everybody as well. Because if you've got that requirement that you must earn money, but you want to learn, then it makes them a really good viable route for people to take.
I suppose sometimes that can be a bit of a stumbling block, can't it? If you want to be educated in a different way, or you just don't have the finances to do it, or you need to be earning that constant wage. And I suppose how things are at the moment, that'll be quite important to a lot of people. So that's a really good thing to know.
I'll come back to some benefits, but just highlighting that one, particularly with degree apprenticeships, that's a really good route. Degrees are often quite unattainable for certain sectors of people. So it might be actually that a degree is suddenly opened up. So you're not coming out of university with a bag load of debt and being a student alongside. You're going through having earned a wage, which is pretty no-brainer, isn't it?
It is.
Going back to some benefits. So from a sort of employer's side of things as well, it's a really good way to future-proof the talent of your business. So if you're getting somebody through the door that's willing to learn, and work at the same time, I know I'd value that quite highly as a manager or employer, somebody that's committed to take that on rather than just doing one or the other.
Yeah.
You're taking that on, and they're building this. In an apprenticeship, you work on your skills, knowledge and behaviours. So you are basically working with somebody to develop those skills, knowledges and behaviours for the future, for them abilities that they need moving forward in your workforce. And you're also moulding them the way you want. Mm-hmm. So they're coming into your organisation and learning and training in your business rather than going somewhere else, just learning the textbook. They're learning how to conduct themselves in the organisation, how to work with your team, how your policies and procedures work, what your culture's like, all of those things alongside, which is a big benefit for employers. When you actually look at motivation as well, one of a really big motivating factor for people is recognition, reward, and actually being given opportunities. Yeah. So if you're offering somebody an apprenticeship route to allow them to upskill, you're going to usually get somebody that's fairly motivated in the door, and you're investing that time and energy into them, which will continue to make them feel motivated to do the role that you're asking them to do. You can address skills shortages. So you could use an apprenticeship route. So you might look and think, we have got a gap coming in the business where somebody is going to be leaving the business through that retirement, maternity or something like that, or we're going to grow a department. It would be great to get somebody in to train as an apprentice now to future-proof that gap that might occur in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah, and definitely something to think about, filling that gap before it happens, so you're not in that situation where they've gone. Mm-hmm. And you're actually growing that talent through that pipeline.
Especially being that we're in the UK, we're actually in an ageing population. So we are going to have a great deal of skills lost from the industries in the coming years. So it's a really great route to look at it and think, what skills are going to go out the door? How can I get those skills to be retained within my business so that then I don't struggle as a business? It gives you a more diverse workforce. Yeah. So somebody that's willing to take on an apprenticeship might be different to somebody that comes through you for a university route, for example. I'm not saying they would, but you might get different backgrounds, different knowledge bases, different motivation levels and things like that, different viewpoints. So every industry is talking about diversity and inclusion and culture. So it's a really good way to try and include that. And it also, as an employer, can really make you sing about your social responsibilities as well, that you are committed to training staff, taking somebody on, building them and developing them.
Yeah, I suppose it shows on that point that the company is willing to invest either in their current staff or in the upcoming staff as well. So it's not just a case of coming into work and doing your job. You've got that actual skill to work alongside your main job.
So more on the apprentices side of things, they're getting paid to learn. They're getting hands-on experience, just to sort of re-highlight them ones. They're getting a nationally recognised qualification that then potentially, if that apprenticeship doesn't work out for them, they leave and they take those qualifications and experience with them. Mm. So that's theirs. Nobody's going to take that back off them, and nobody's going to ask them to pay for the training either. And they're going to get new skills and knowledge, basically, to take with them along the way.
Great stuff. Lovely. Well, I think that covers everything for today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.